Next at noon, complete coverage of the Boston terror attacks. Moments ago, President Obama declared the explosions an act of terror. We are live in Boston today with team coverage. We have the latest on the federal investigation and runners and family from Central Florida returning home. We're hearing from several people that were near blast zones about what they saw. The latest from Boston, as well as your local news and our first alert forecast. It is all next at noon.
Texting while driving causes 1.6 million crashes per year. And sadly, I've had to respond to many of those devastating results. You are 23 times more likely to get into an accident while texting and driving. That's why you should take the pledge to make your car a text-free zone. Join WESH 2 and let's make Central Florida roads safer. Log on to WESH.com to take the pledge. Check the box to receive this decal and help spread the word to make your vehicle a text-free zone.
Sponsored by Rue, Zifra and Caldwell and WESH 2. Local, live, late breaking. This is WESH 2 News at noon in high definition.
New details this noon about the explosions at the Boston Marathon. President Obama just calling the attacks a, quote, act of terror. This is what we know. 3 people, including an 8-year-old boy, are dead. More than 170 others are injured. Security is extremely tight in Boston as officials try and figure out who could have done this. Officials there are asking anyone to speak up if they know anything or saw anything. We begin this noon with a live report out of Boston. We are getting the very latest from Jay Gray. He joins us live now with much more.
Good afternoon. Boston under heavy security, as you might imagine right now. Police and federal agents working in and around the blast site as the search for a motive and suspects intensifies here. Down in the heart of the city this afternoon as investigators continue to sift through debris, searching for answers.
We are in the process of securing and processing the most complex crime scene that we've dealt with in the history of our department.
For now, investigators won't discuss specifics about the explosive devices that triggered 2 violent blasts, killing 3 people, including 8-year-old Martin Richard, who died just after seeing his dad cross the finish line at the marathon.
This was a heinous and cowardly act, and given what we now know about what took place, the FBI is investigating it as an act of terrorism.
The search for suspects led to this suburban apartment in Revere, Massachusetts overnight, where investigators removed bags of potential evidence. Agents won't discuss what they found and say there's no suspect in custody right now. One reason, officers warn, there will be visible, stepped-up security across the city for the foreseeable future. Doctors continue to work around the clock as well. More than 100 victims are still in area hospitals, many with severe wounds from shrapnel that doctors say was added to the devices to maximize the carnage.
This bomb had multiple metallic fragments in them, and we removed pallets and nails.
One of several factors pushing investigators to find the person or people responsible. Now, input from the public will also be a major part of that investigation today. Police, again, making pleas for any pictures, video, or other potential evidence from those who were at the finish line at the time of the blast. That is the latest live here in Boston. I'm Jay Gray. Now back to you.
More than 50 Central Florida runners ran in the Boston Marathon, many there with family members, including the dean of the Rollins College Chapel. We have learned some of the dean's family members were hurt there. We have team coverage of the attacks. WESH 2's Michelle Meredith is live at Rollins College. Amanda Ober is at OIA as local runners come home. But we begin with WESH 2's Aixa Diaz. She's live at Logan Airport in Boston. Aixa.
Well, Jason, and this morning, within the last hour, we've learned of a couple of security incidents at both here, Logan Airport in Boston and LaGuardia in New York. Both have been given the all clear, but of course, authorities not taking any chances this morning. There is heightened security here at Logan right now, but the mood at the JetBlue terminal is relaxed. Runners are heading home, and including 2 runners that the Central Florida running community knows well, the owners of Track Shack on 1792.
We're all shaken up. It's just incredibly horrible and sad.
Betsy and John Hughes, the owners of Track Shack in Orlando, are flying back home after an emotional and exhausting 24 hours. They never imagined the Boston Marathon would end in tragedy.
That's hard is when the runners are stumbling toward the finish line and you think that's the worst it's going to get.
John finished the marathon about an hour before the explosions. Betsy was in the grandstands on Boylston Street waiting for him. They walked to their hotel a couple of blocks away, and shortly after, they heard the booms.
As you remember, when the Twin Towers went down and people were just sprinting down the side streets, that was the second thing we saw after the explosions, was people just sprinting down the side streets trying to get away from the blast area.
It was very somber. People were just hanging out with their family. Every single person was on their telephone. Mostly we were texting because we couldn't get on the phone for a couple hours.
Betsy and John wonder how these bombings will change security measures at future races, but they say no matter what, they will be back for the Boston Marathon next year.
I will not let this deter me. I don't think any runner that I know will.
And you're looking live at a couple of runners. You can tell they're runners because they're wearing their bright yellow and blue jackets. And many of them here at the airport this morning have been wearing their outfits. They have their numbers on and their medals. They say it's a bittersweet moment. Some of them had really good times. They want to celebrate their completion of the Boston Marathon. But of course, then after they finished, they learned of everything that happened. Live at Logan International Airport in Boston, Aixa Diaz, WESH 2 News.
Right now, students and faculty of Rollins College are holding a prayer vigil for the dean of the chapel whose family was injured in the explosion. WESH 2's Michelle Meredith continues her team coverage now. She is on campus live now with more. Michelle.
Well, this prayer service is being held in honor of all the victims in Boston, but it hits home, very close to home, for one person in particular, the chaplain for Rollins College, because 3 members of his family were injured in the first explosion. Now, Patrick Powers has been the dean of the chapel here at Rollins College for 19 years. Dean Powers' sister, brother-in-law, and nephew were spectators at the finish line to the Boston Marathon. We're thrilled to have such a great spot so close to the finish line when the first bomb went off. Now, all 3 are in the hospital. His brother-in-law, Bill White, is the most severely injured. His leg was amputated from the knee down. Mary Jo White has shrapnel in her hand, will undergo surgery today. And their son, Kevin, who is in his 30s, is in shock.
Oh, this is my family's 9/11. That, you know, when usually we think about an attack like this, which looks very devastating and it seems like a terrorist attack, I have always thought, and many people have always thought, well, it will never happen to my family. We will somehow be immune. Well, nobody is immune, as I now know. My family has experienced the devastation of a bomb explosion that they had no reason to experience. It's senseless, it's maddening, it's completely tragic.
Now, Dean Powers tells us his sister and brother-in-law are in their late 60s, early 70s, and they will survive this. They will use this as their anchor. Live in Orange County, Michelle Meredith, WESH 2 News.
The impact of the blast is taking a toll on people from Central Florida. A Claremont woman says she was across the street when the second bomb went off. She just returned home hours ago. WESH 2's Amanda Ober is live at OIA. Amanda, this woman says she's still shaken.
Yet many of these runners who are returning to Orlando today, understandably, are still very upset and may be for weeks to come as they process through what happened while they were in Boston. Now, the woman we spoke to, Tammy Stockdill of Claremont, says she was watching and waiting for her husband during yesterday's race less than 100 yards from the finish line. She was standing on top of a raised barrier holding onto a light post as the initial bomb went off. At first, she says everyone around her froze, and that's when the second blast occurred. Thankfully, Tammy wasn't hurt, and she says people started rushing and moving away from the explosion. At one point, just not sure if more explosions were going to come.
The percussion from both of those bombs was pretty strong, and you could feel it and hear it, and so I think my ears are still ringing. Debris everywhere, and thankfully the first responders and the race personnel, and there was some military personnel who were participating, and they just they just jumped right on it. And those who were well enough to move then got the heck out of their way.
Now, we also spoke to Tammy's husband, who said this was his first ever marathon, and he was 1 mile away from the finish line when the bombing happened. He says race officials stopped them, but he had no idea what was going on ahead. For Tammy, she says some of these images will never leave her mind. Now, many of the runners we spoke with at OIA, while they were shaken, said they will not give up running in these type of races, and many said they will return to Boston next year. Live outside OIA, Amanda Ober, WESH 2 News.
In light of the explosions in Boston, we're seeing increased security right here in Central Florida. You can see Homeland Security officers outside the Orlando Federal Building this morning. In this photo, we're learning they were searching vehicles and also have bomb-sniffing dogs on hand just to make sure everything is safe. Check out our extensive coverage of the terror attacks online. We have real-time updates on the investigation, plus the latest pictures and video from Boston, both on our Facebook page as well as WESH.com. New at noon, the National Weather Service reports a tornado did touch down in Central Florida Sunday night. You were looking at some of the aftermath in Viera, where the tornado passed through with winds up to 85 miles per hour. You could see pool furniture thrown around, and that screen completely ripped apart at this home in the Sonoma neighborhood. Several straight-line winds in Cocoa and Palm Bay reached up to 70 miles per hour, causing roof damage on several businesses and homes. First Alert meteorologist Jason Brewer joins us now. Jason, that tornado really packed a punch.
Yeah, you bet, Jason. You know, any tornado, it's a tornado, even though it is the lowest on the EF scale that we use to rate these things. Like you said, Sunday night, 75 to 85 mile-an-hour winds. It was a short track. It was embedded with a longer line of straight-line winds that we often see with our severe weather here in Central Florida. Tornadoes are more rare, but we had the damage to the roof tiles, the windows, the pool screens, lanais, that kind of thing, as you just saw there from the Chopper 2 video. All right, temperatures right now, low 80s inland, even 81 at Melbourne, 77 at Palm Coast. We've got a nice breeze developing this afternoon, which should keep our temperatures from going too far out of control. We'll see those low 80s by 6 o'clock again, mostly clear, in the mid 70s by 9. Much more straight ahead on rain chances this week. Back to you.
And this at noon, we continue following the latest from those Boston terror attacks. Next, a Florida doctor near the finish line just as those explosions go off, and he is describing the scene and the chaos around him as dozens rush in to help the wounded.
A year-long independent weather study conducted by Weather Rate proves WESH 2 First Alert Weather is Central Florida's most accurate forecast.
Local, live, late-breaking. This is WESH 2 News at noon with Jason Guy, Meredith McDonough, and First Alert meteorologist Jason Brewer. This is WESH 2 News at noon in high definition.
New this noon, officials in Boston say there are no new threats after yesterday's attack. We are just learning from investigators that the explosives were made of pressure cookers with metal ball bearings. It only took seconds after the blast for witnesses, runners, and first responders to race toward the mayhem, including a Florida doctor, Dr. Alan Painter. He's an emergency room physician from Gainesville. He was near the finish line yesterday, waiting for his wife to finish that race when an explosion happened.
When I first spun around, I saw one lady bleeding from her leg wound, put some compression on that, and then I realized all the people to what had been to my left had gone down, and just started helping with the other bystanders, pulling people actually apart because they were laying in a pile basically with mangled limbs, and started working on each person as you could. The sidewalk volunteers, instead of running away, they stopped and fell and worked the people. When the Boston Athletic Association volunteers came, they came with supplies, and once you got in the medical tent, it was all that a ER physician could ask for. There were cots, IVs, nurses, and physicians. It was well prepared.
Officials in Boston say there will be more police patrolling and even National Guard soldiers in that city over the next few days. In Washington, D.C., the annual Emancipation Day Parade will go on as planned in the day ahead. Officials were out early this morning putting final preparations in place in the Capitol. Extra police officers will be on hand for that parade. On this date in 1862, President Lincoln freed about 3,000 slaves. And we have extensive coverage of the deadly attacks in Boston online. Get real-time updates on this investigation, plus see new pictures and video from the area Just like our Facebook page, or you can always get the latest on WESH.com. Today, people are remembering the victims of the deadly Virginia Tech shooting. 6 years ago today, a 23-year-old college student went on a shooting rampage at the Virginia Tech campus, killing 32 people and injuring 23 before killing himself. Senators Joe Manchin and Senator Pat Toomey spoke yesterday about how the tragedy might have been prevented.
They knew that this was a very unstable and very dangerous man. But the state of Virginia never passed that information on. And so there was no information about this man in the national background check system.
This morning, families from Virginia Tech gathered outside the U.S. Capitol to mark the anniversary. Covering Lake County right now, a local mother and father are behind bars accused of starving their own child. Tavares police say their 11-year-old daughter was so malnourished she weighed only 40 pounds. 45-year-old Jacqueline Bailey and her husband John Bailey were arrested Friday on child abuse charges. Investigators say the couple locked the refrigerator and pantry so their daughter wouldn't be able to get food. DCF has taken custody of the child. Today, we are expecting to hear from the Canaveral Port Authority CEO about the firing of a local police sergeant. Interim CEO John Walsh is scheduled to talk this afternoon for the first time since Ron King posted a YouTube video claiming targets looking like a silhouette of Trayvon Martin were to be used as no-shoot exercises. Walsh says he has started a series of meetings with officers to begin implementing improvements in the department. New information, Carnival now says it will pay up for getting help when 2 of its ships got stuck in the Caribbean. The cruise line says it will voluntarily pay the U.S. Treasury after the Coast Guard had to rescue passengers on board the Triumph and the Splendor back in January of 2010. Carnival says no government agency asked for reimbursement and has not said how much it will give. This afternoon, we're seeing some sunshine here in Central Florida. First Alert meteorologist Jason Brewer joins us. But Jason, we're not going to see the temperature climb as high as yesterday. Why is that?
Yeah, we have a little more of an ocean wind. So most noticeably around our northeast coast, Jason, we'll see those temperatures kind of holding steady now that we have that persistent breeze coming in off the ocean. That's going to be the pattern really for several more days. It's also going to mean an enhanced rip current risk at area beaches. So keep that in mind if you're going to be enjoying all the sun and the nice dry and bright air we have. 83 right now in Orlando. Humidity's up a little bit, so it feels more like 86. However, as we go through the afternoon, the humidity typically falls a little bit, so not too bad overall. 77 right now in Palm Coast, the coolest number on the map. Warmest readings, Winter Haven and the Villages. The farther you get away from the Atlantic, the warmer it's going to get this afternoon. Winds are coming in about 5-15 miles an hour. We'll have a few gusts around 20 or so, but nice steady breeze, not too bad for sailing. 82 in Titusville today, 87 in Orlando, above normal temperatures area-wide today. 79, though, at Flagler Beach if you want to cool off a little bit. Rip currents, as I mentioned, going to be a continuing story for the next few days. Just a light chop, though, for the boaters and 3 to 4 foot seas with our surf temperature hovering in the upper 60s and low 70s. That nice breeze off the ocean, that's going to mean our rain chance all but nil. We might get a little west coast sea breeze to try to pop up a brief shower across I-75 late this afternoon. That's about it. So no significant weather tonight, mainly clear this evening. We're looking just fine out there for your evening plans. Nice beach weather continues tomorrow. Watching that rip current threat continuing right on through at least Thursday. Southeast winds on Thursday. We might see a stray afternoon shower or storm out to the west of Orlando with that type of pattern. Maybe a coastal shower, but most of us are dry on Thursday. By Friday, better chance of an afternoon storm creeping back in because we have an approaching cool front, and that's going to allow us to bring a little more moisture in here, and out ahead of the front, our sea breezes may have a little more punch to them. So we'll watch out by the end of the week for that returning storm chance. Now this front, it doesn't clear all the way through Central Florida as it's looking now. So we're going to have the rain chances creeping up Saturday, and they may hang around with us on Sunday and Monday until we can let go of the effects of that front. Jason, back to you.
Thank you, Jason. A near-death experience for one man while visiting a museum in China. The young man was standing under a 2-ton bell, just trying to get a closer look when it came crashing down on him. The bell reportedly came down because visitors above him started to spin it. Rescuers were able to lift that bell off the man. Luckily, he was not injured. Some Seminole County parents could find out tonight where their children will go to school next year. The school board is expected to give its final approval for rezoning plans within the next few days. Parents will have one last chance to be heard at a meeting scheduled for tonight regarding the east phase of rezoning. About 3,000 students could be forced to switch campuses. Speeding will get you a hefty fine and points on your license unless you're a state lawmaker. That's what this trooper claimed when he gave 2 legislators a break on speeding last November, instead giving them tiny fines and no points under lesser infractions. The trooper was fired for his actions, and on camera, he tells WESH 2 what he thinks of the way he's being treated.
So I guess they can say whatever they want to say, but I can just tell you what I was told. I've been told by middle management, you know, be lenient on them. The day that this happened, I informed them that I stopped 2 legislators and was asked, was I lenient on them? And I said yes.
WESH 2 News also talks to the sergeant who was supervising those traffic stops, and we'll get the Florida Highway Patrol side in all of this. It's a WESH 2 News exclusive. Greg Fox's special report airs tonight at 5. A warning today, new snails are invading Florida. But why these aren't your regular garden variety.
WESH 2 First Alert Weather, sponsored by the Law Office of Martinez and Minglardi.
If you've been injured in an accident, you want results. At Martinez Minglardi, we fight for everything you deserve. Call us now or visit our website. Martinez Minglardi, for more than 20 years, fighting for results. Call us now.
You speed, you get a ticket, right? But are politicians getting a free pass from state police?
But we've always been told, be lenient on them.
Be lenient. In other words, cut them some slack, give them a break.
Right.
Now, WESH 2 News blows the lid off a fast-developing controversy.
It's always been an unwritten policy with the Florida Highway Patrol.
No, we do not have an unwritten policy on that.
Who do you believe? A WESH 2 News investigation, the politics of speed. Today at 5, local, live, late breaking.
I'm John Forsythe.
And I'm Leslie Gale. Get your First Alert weather forecast here every day.
On Magic 107.7, light rock, less talk, and
Central Florida's most accurate forecast.
WESH 2 First Alert weather on Magic 107.7.
Closed captioning sponsored by Bogan Munz & Munz.
Time and temperature from TD Bank.
Coming up on First at 4, we'll have team coverage on the Boston terror attack. From Boston to Central Florida, we are live with stories from local runners who witnessed the tragedy. And we're following the latest on the case as the FBI hunts for answers. We've got that and more on WESH 2 News First at 4. Nasty nuisances in South Florida are now being called deadly. You got to see this. These are giant African snails. They can grow to be the size of a rat. Officials say they carry a potentially deadly parasite. Even driving over them is dangerous because of their sharp, hard shells. It could cause your tire to pop. Experts think the snails got to the U.S. by hitching rides on travelers' luggage. Trappers are now working to get the snails contained. So you think a little tiny thing, couple of inches long, but they say the size of a rat. So you're talking a huge snail. Stay away.
I've never seen anything. Hopefully don't get them up here in Central Florida.
Stay down south.
That's right, guys. Get those under control. All right, for today, we're going to keep it dry. On into tomorrow, too, most of Thursday. So we're back to our dry season. But as we head toward the weekend, a new front means increasing the rain chances once again.
And the very latest on the Boston terror attacks from Florida to Central Florida, that's ahead on WESH 2 News First at 4 with Jim and Martha. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching WESH 2 News, honored with 3 Emmy Awards, including Best Coverage in Breaking News.